Hi, I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
This is Two Guys, One Car.
Welcome to our car.
Dude, it starts with Two Guys, One Car. That's the name. It should start
It's
with
welcome
the
to our car.
name. No, but it has to start with Two Guys, One Car because that's the name of the thing.
Just get in the back seat.
Ride along with us. It is like we're going to be starting to do more and more of that as you do more of the Acuna stuff as well.
Yeah.
Which I've been thinking about, and like it will be actually easy to do because we're not always recording.
That's the thing. Like, the togetherness is purely for the recording and other shit. Like, it's good to be together, collaborative thoughts and creativity. But in terms of workload, it's like editing is solo. There's no two-man job in that.
And the only part of editing that's probably not solo at the moment is like more so us when we're like collaborating on getting better at editing. Learning. Like, I think that's the only thing that we do if we're together while we're editing. Otherwise, it's just we're just sitting there silent because it's just a mundane task. But I think that's good. That it's actually really good timing because we've had that chance to like sort of learn together, and like obviously we're learning more and more. But I think that now you doing the Acuna stuff and like we're a bit better at editing, we can do it by ourselves. It's like it actually kind of works out.
The only spanner in the works is the matte thing, like with the like high quality cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to edit that
100%.
is interesting.
But it's something we're going to have to get used to anyway. So it's like, yes, it'll be good to learn it. But it's just the more of the fact is like we're trying to be accountable to keeping the one a
Every
week.
Friday.
Yeah.
And it's been 2 close weeks. Like you've pulled 2. Well, last night was later, to be fair, than the week previously, but there was less stress.
I was going to say, it was definitely less stressful because we had recorded it, so that wasn't a biggie. The sauna one was like, we recorded it. It was like record, see ya, start editing, 2:30 a.m., get it out.
What was the highlight of your day?
Highlight of my day. Actually, I had a really yummy breakfast. I had just eggs, avo, and that chili sauce. Got the clips done for the Savi pod. There's about 6, so that's good. How do you, before I ask you about your day, when you're editing and you're like going back through the pod that you recorded, do you find it weird like listening to it again? Like as in, do you find you get more out of it listening to it again?
Yeah, yes and no. Depends on the mood I'm in. If I'm like really tired and just trying to finish the edit, then not really. But for the most part, yes, because I'm actually listening to the whole conversation versus being in it. And when you're in it, there's a lot of there's a lot of intent on making sure that like the production's good, making sure that the conversation's flowing the way like I want it to flow, the way we want it to flow. So I'm consciously like running my mind thinking about all of these other things versus when I'm just a fly on the wall, I can just absorb so much more. It's amazing how you can just converse about anything. Like we were at a point where we were both dry with kind of topics that we wanted to discuss with Sam, but he was keen to keep rolling, we were keen to keep rolling, so we just kept talking. It's amazing how you can really just talk about anything.
Not just because like when we're dry with topics, it's not like we go into it like we want to talk about a certain few things and that's it. It's almost just like we it's like I see them as just gateway to conversation. So it's like I'll have 5 like different things that I know about that person, and going into it I just know that about them, so we're trying to relate it around that, and then they're just gateways to more stuff. That's definitely, I think we nailed that with Sam. Like when I was listening back to it, we really let him sort of think about the stuff he was saying. Like we were almost like not helping him like get it across, but like guiding it, which I want to definitely get better at. Like helping people be a bit more comfortable in front of like the camera talking, because now that I've done it, I'm just speaking for myself, but now that we've done it like 20 odd times, I'm just so comfortable talking in front of a camera. Like it doesn't make any difference. It's
also, I'd be keen to experience, like on the drive we will, but talking in front of a camera that's purposely filming us, because I feel like in conversation in the pod, yes, we're being filmed, but it's a phone, it's very small. So I'm interested to see how it's going to be when there's an actual like production camera filming us, and like we're moving around, we're not just sitting and having a conversation. So it's more like, in a way it's more vulnerable because it's capturing our whole body. There's our movement involved, whereas for the most part we're just sitting and talking.
You were talking about that, was that with someone, maybe it was with Will last night, how you were talking about when there's just the phone, like just having the phone there. And like now I'm just thinking about the phone, and it's like I don't even think about the phone, because we're, like you were saying the other night, we're so used to phones, so you don't really think of it as a camera. It's kind of just a phone.
It's just a phone. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of filming with phones. Everyone has them, so they're familiar to everyone, but not everyone has a big production camera or is on the other side of a big production camera the whole time, or like all the time of their life. So that's a dynamic that people need to get used to.
Yeah. 100%.
If you are on camera. Question I want to ask you: what do you think? 5-10 questions, whatever you can think of, that everyone should like have answers to, in terms of answers to themselves. Like they've answered it for now, and it's not a definitive answer. So the question, like, what happens when you die? Like, do you think that's a question that people should ponder throughout their life and come up with some sort of an
so
answer?
it's ongoing. Okay, so it's a question that you can always answer, but
can
you
always
may
change.
you may have a different answer.
Yeah, but better to have an answer than to just be like, I'll never think about it.
Okay. Ooh, that's interesting, because you can think of like almost categories in which you want to hit, but in terms of the actual wording of the question, it's difficult. Off the top of my head, I would say, am I healthy at the moment?
It's a good question.
So,
And what is
well, I'll just say, am I healthy? Because at the moment, that's not the point. It's like, am I healthy? Yes or no? What were you going to say? What's the...
Well, like that dives into all categories of health, like physical health, mental health, financial health.
Definitely.
Health, really,
so yeah, you kind of,
so.
yeah. Well, if it's, say I can go with 5. So say that's 1. Are you healthy? Are you, okay, this will be 2 questions, but they're similar, but like 2 different sort of things. Are you happy? And then are you fulfilled? So I'd say for me, like, am I happy? Happiness for me is like, I try and see happiness as something that's shared. So happiness is what I get from sharing experiences, and different unique things, new things, old things, nostalgic things that make me feel good. Like whether it be something like last night where we went and got dinner with 2 good mates. You know what I mean? Like we just had like such a good conversation for like 2 hours.
Beautiful.
Such a good combo. Good feed, and it's like, that makes me happy. But things like today, my day today, when I was just by myself, like doing clips, ticking boxes, making things happen like that, like getting through my list, like that's for me fulfillment. So I'm not sharing that, it's just me doing it. So I feel more fulfilled like that. So are you happy? Are you fulfilled? On that, like I feel like they're the gauges for me all the time. So that's why I would ask it, because sometimes I feel like I may be, for me most of the time, I'm like, I'm always happy because I'm just naturally more sharing than not. And then it's like, I always have to ask myself, like, am I fulfilled? Am I fulfilling myself?
Why do you feel like those are the metrics you've landed upon to constantly keep
to do that? Because every time I feel, when I'm by myself and I feel that feeling of like good, we'll just call it good, it's like, it doesn't seem happy to me. I feel like I'm completing something, you know, like, fulfillment is the right word. Like, it's just like you feel
adding the missing piece to
yeah,
the puzzle.
100%. So yeah, fulfillment is the land I've kind of like, the word I've kind of landed on, just because I feel like it identifies me, just feeling, it feels like I filled my cup and I haven't like left, when you don't leave anything in the tank, that's what it kind of feels like.
Interesting. That's a good way to put it.
But when I'm with people, I feel the most happy. So I feel like my happiness comes from that. And I wouldn't say I would strive for happiness like as my end goal. I would strive for both happiness and fulfillment, because I think they're probably both important. My 4th question would be, what kind of impact are you making, and what is your almost like footprint? So at the moment, what's your footprint? So I guess that could speak to like how your relationships are with the people you love, and like how your relationship with yourself is. It sort of ties into happiness, health. Sorry, like
almost just like the idea of like where you go, where you lay your footprints. What are you leaving behind?
That's the main thing by footprint. I mean, it's like, what are you actually leaving behind? What are your impacts? Like by doing the stuff that you're, and because it's like you said, an ongoing question. It's like you can ask yourself that all the time, because once you start doing different shit, it's like,
and it's in every situation we have footprints. Like you leave a conversation that you have with your friend, and then you go to work, like, and then you leave work. They're 2 completely different scenarios. And a cool way to look at that is like, I just have this image in my head of a like burning house, just like destruction, and there's just a set of footprints walking towards like the camera almost. And it's like, are you leaving those kind of footprints, or are you leaving footprints where there's just beautiful, happy people smiling, and like there's a set of footprints leading away from that.
Well, yeah, it's sort of, if you ask yourself that kind of question, it's probably going to make you think about the actions you take, because it's almost like the whole idea of the question being it's predicated on like, what footprints are you making? What do those footprints look like? What are they doing to other people? And then if they're doing something bad, what actions are you doing that lead to that? So kind of like it forces you to reflect on the way you act, and the sort of person you're being around others, and I guess yourself, like in your own spare time and whatnot. Fifth question is, how present are you being? We talked about we went to dinner last night, two mates, and Nick Krebs was saying how he tries to not live like anymore. He doesn't live 5 years any more than 5 years ahead. So he tries to be as present as he can in terms of his short-term, medium-term, and long-term decisions. So even his long-term decisions, they go no further than 5 years. So it's like in him, like maybe it's his career. He starts to be like, all right, I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to put my all into fighting. So that's only the next 5 years he's thinking about. So I'd say, how present are you being? Because I think that's kind of important. We get stuck in like, oh, I'm going to save this amount of money to get this home. And it's like, you're always like working for the future. And we were talking about that last night too. It's just funny, like, why would we even work for the future? And because we were talking about what happens if you, like, we all did and was asking some questions, and we were saying, why do we all think we're going to live to 100? Like, you could get hit by a car, so why would you think about, you know, the house you're going to have?
We're talking about like tragedy with when people die, and it's an interesting conversation to have. Talking about like someone that's young, like what we consider young, dying, versus somebody that's like what we consider old, like 80, 90 dying, and how we look at death of an old person for the most part and we're like, oh, they lived such a long life, like we could be happy in that. But somebody that dies really young, we're like, that's so sad, they lived such a short life. But like, why is that such a sad thing?
Yeah,
like,
no, definitely.
Purely because of this preconceived expectation that we're all gonna live this long life. And then it's the question of, why is living so much better?
Yeah.
Like, who's to say that that's better?
Yeah, definitely.
But it is interesting.
And then we started talking about how like funerals and stuff, most Western funerals are not like concentrating on the sadness of the people that are there, rather than celebrating the life of the person you're grieving. The emotions being displayed are those of a selfish one, focusing on how we feel about losing somebody, versus like when you look at a lot of Eastern cultures, it's a celebration, and it's from the perspective of like objectively celebrating their life, not subjectively. So it's amazing how just that switch in mindset can turn a really like depressing and sad day into like a day of true celebration. And it's cool that it plays out. Like, it's one of our friends, Luke Dumet, he was I believe it was in India, he was traveling, like he's a travel vlogger, and he's just walking down the street, sees all these people dancing and partying around, wearing colorful stuff, and he just jumps in, starts vlogging, getting the content, and then he found out later that was a funeral. And I remember talking to him about it. He's just like, it was so weird to be around so many people that were so happy, yet like they'd lost somebody. Yeah, but I'm sure there's people who hear that and they're like, oh, that's so bad, you know what I mean? How can you be happy at a funeral? It's like, we're just so bred into the idea we're supposed to be sad. But it feels so, I don't know, it feels so wrong being sad about it. I'm always looking forward to the wake, where it's like you're celebrating that person's death. Everyone's got that mask, they have that funeral mask they have to wear, they've taken it off, and then you start opening up about stories about that person, the impact they made, the little things they did. It's like, that's the type of stuff that you should be talking about.
Focusing on what they've done.
And their loved ones talking about the little things they did with, like, you know, it could be a grandkid sharing it, and then, you know, God forbid, but like their mother talking about it if their son had passed away. It's like,
it's beautiful. And it's not to say you can't be sad. Like, all loss is sad for sure, but it's the focus you want to put on it. Like, what do you want to be highlighting on those days and every day? Do you want to be, and again, it comes back to just everyday life. Do you want to be focusing on the negative or the positive? It's a choice that we can make. And yeah, I'd rather be happy way more than I'd rather be sad.
Well, it just feels more natural to be happy. Like, if you stopped thinking about it and being like, I'm supposed to be sad. If you stop thinking about that, yeah, 100%. Well, yeah, that goes back to the fifth question, and yeah, being like, how present are you? And again, that can talk to different aspects of your life. And yeah, what 5 questions would you ask to yourself?
Yeah, I think personally for me, it's not going to be for everyone, but I think the first and foremost that I ask, and I got this from a book I read recently, my osteopath, he's a Christian man, and he always consults like the Lord and gets like his download. So it's the question of like, okay, Lord, like what are we doing now? Where are we going? And he writes in a way of like saying that he's like your business partner for life. And it's like just getting his download and moving once you've received that download almost. So for me, that's a question I try to ask myself a lot.
So what's the exact question?
Like where are we going now, Lord? What are we doing? What's the movement? Which way are we going? And it's a question I want to ask more than I do. But I'm not perfect, and that's all right. I'll do what I can. But yeah, it's a good question to ask.
That's actually a good point to make. And the perfect thing is like I've listed 5 questions off the top of my head, and I probably ask myself in that way. I'd like to ask myself those 5 questions more. It's not like I actually do that.
And it's not like these are the golden 5. Like this is just off the cuff. Where I am right now. I think that's definitely one of them. Another one is just simply, how are you doing today? How are you doing right now in this moment? What are the feelings going on in your mind? What are the things happening in your life, and how do they make you feel? I think that's a question a lot of people don't ask themselves. It's funny, we get asked how we're doing pretty much every day by, I don't know, 10, 15 people at least once a day. Maybe that's a wrong estimate, but anyway, you at least get asked how you are once a day, and pretty much every single person's response is good, not bad, okay. What are any of those things?
Yeah, all right.
Like, what are any of those when you come down to it? I just find it so disconnected. Like,
it's different to what the words actually are supposed to mean.
Yeah,
It doesn't
why
mean
ask a question if you don't actually want to know? But then why answer a question that you're not going to give a true answer to? So when I see people around, especially at work at Bunnings, and they're like, how are you doing? I'll like take a second, think, and then be like, I'm pretty tired, or like I'm feeling good. I'll just listen to my body and my mind and see how I'm feeling and try and answer. And when they say good, I try to like call people out and be like, why did you say good? Like, how are you actually feeling?
Yeah, because it's like the answer to why did you say good is your actual answer to how are you.
So yeah, it's always a good question to ask. And I think asking ourselves that is a great question. Number 3 is going to be, if you had like 10 hours to live or something, what is it that you would want to do in those 10 hours? And then you write down whatever those are. And then the follow-up question to that is, why haven't you done those things yet? And if your answers are like, oh, just go rob a bank and do all these wild things, that's not what I'm saying. Why haven't you done that yet? What I'm saying is,
why haven't you done that yet?
Yeah. I'm saying, why haven't you done that yet, to the people that answer. Like, I would tell the girl I love that I love her. I would tell my dad, my mom, my sister that I love them so much. I would go to that place that I've always wanted to go to and just like be there. Or I would go bungee jumping, whatever it is, whatever those things are. Why haven't you done those yet? Ask yourself that. Because I think a lot of those things are probably things that you have the ability to do, you're just scared to, and for whatever reason, like you don't want to. And when you're informed that you only have X amount of hours to live, 10 hours, then there's no care, because you're like, oh, I'll be dead, so no one will judge me. You shouldn't be acting around people's judgment, or what you think people are going to judge you for. So definitely act in a way where you're doing what you want to be doing. The 4th question would be, have you lived a selfless life? That's the question. And then the 5th question I would ask is, if you were to die and to meet the person that you could have been when you died, are you going to be meeting the same person that you were, or are they going to be drastically different? I always like that.
Is that
question.
A fulfillment thing? Are you being the person you could be?
Yeah. It's just living up to your potential. I think it's a David Goggins quote. He says,
is this
about hell. He's like, I think hell is the place where you go and meet the person you could have been.
Yeah, no, he talks about it's like how he says his biggest fear. So David Goggins has a fear, and his biggest fear is that one day he dies and then he goes to heaven. So he's in the line to open to the gates of heaven, and he's walking through, and there's a big like whiteboard for everyone. So there's a line, and he's in the line. He gets to the front of the line. There's a big whiteboard there that says what he could have been, and he hasn't fulfilled all of that stuff. So that's the thing he's afraid of. He's afraid of not being the 100% person he could be, because God had this plan for him to be that person, and he gets there, and he's not that person he was supposed to be.
Yeah,
That's his
so
biggest fear.
I love that question. Like, if you were going to meet the person of like your absolute potential, are you meeting yourself or are you meeting someone completely different? And I think ultimately we're never going to meet our true full potential, because we all fall short. We're all imperfect. But it's about closing that gap. How close can you get that gap? And that's why I use the ghost analogy of Mario Kart so often. That's like the person I'm constantly chasing, and I'll never achieve that, and that's fine. But as long as I can stay on his heels, then I'm doing my job.
What's so good about that too is it actually really applies across your whole life. Like, that's very constant, because you become a certain person, you change, and you become a certain way. So say you're an absolute bum, you change your life, turn it around, you're being a good human, whatever. It's like, then you still have better. They're still better than you now. So it's like you're always going to be going for that. So it actually doesn't change. So it's a good habit to be in, almost. And it's probably addictive. Like, when you think about it, you can just get into that habit. Yeah.
But I think the important thing is it's setting your sights on something that is always going to be there. A lot of people set their goals to become an Olympic gold medalist, become a millionaire, become like a father, become a homeowner, whatever it is, and you attain these things at a certain age, whatever it is, and then it's like, oh man, what's next? I've never thought about anything else my entire life. I've been so fixated on this goal. I've now achieved it. What do I do now? And that's where a lot of people plummet. That's why look at a lot of athletes after their sporting careers, they fall into like deep depressions and drug use and whatnot. And it's because they've just been so fixated on their craft, the sport. And once that's over, they have no other direction. And that's where, when you can flip it to just being the best person you can possibly be every day, then that never ends.
Or at least, even if you can't do that or can't see that, it's maybe like trying to give yourself tasks that are unfulfillable. So it's like you will never fully tick that box. But it's going to put you in the right direction. It's almost like a course corrector, that task. It puts you in the right direction again. And it's like, yes, you're never going to tick that box, but what you do know is that it's going to put you back on that right path.
Yeah. It's like my great-grandfather, my great-opa, he had a similar experience to this. Actually, I don't know if I've told you this, but there's a book about his life, which I haven't read fully, but really interesting book.
I think I know this.
Yeah, and he was laying in a park one day in the Netherlands, just taking like a nap around midday, I think it was. And he went into like a kind of like a dreamy, trancey sort of state, like no use of substances. And he just saw, like, he was on a ladder, and I'm probably paraphrasing this a little bit. I can't remember it exactly, but he was on a ladder climbing, and like he like saw God, and God was like promise me that you're gonna keep climbing this ladder, like one step at a time, until you eventually like get to me. And he just made that promise in that moment, came out of it, and was just like, oh my goodness, like that's so wild. And like went and told family and friends and stuff. Didn't get the like reception, I guess, that he was expecting, being such a massive like moment in his life
for him.
And then just being like, oh, like it wasn't like what I expected. Like the reaction isn't, they're not mirroring him, which isn't really the point of the story. The point of the story being that every day it was just moving up the ladder one step. That's all it is. Every day, just moving, and knowing that like one day you'll get to where you're going.
Yeah. Simplest way to put it is almost like, if you're not taking that step upwards, you're either staying still on the ladder or you're going down the ladder. So ask any person, what would you rather do? Go down, stay still, or go up? Everyone's going to say go up. So why don't we apply that across there? It's just sometimes it feels so hard to do so, and there's something to that. But I think you gain more than just, like, I was running the other day. I was dead, like I was hammered, and like I finished the run. I was feeling so lightheaded. I just sat down on a bench, and I was just like looking into the water, and I was just in this state of like nothing could have like rocked me. Like in a weird state of just everything's all right. Do you know what I mean? And it was only because I'd gone through the climb up the ladder, the struggle of like, my body and brain had tell myself to stop. slow down, stop. It's going on and on for like 45 minutes. Do you know what I mean? At the back end of your run, and just that feeling of getting through it and just sitting there, it was just like nothing could fuck with me anymore. It was just like I had this trance of just I'd done it, and it's like I feel like doing those hard things, taking that step up the ladder, just gives you so much clarity. Because when I hate getting so confused and like muddled when you're in that sort of rut, like you just so many things coming at you, you just don't know how to figure things out. You need a course corrector. I think doing something difficult is always such a course corrector. That's for me. Like I think it's for everyone, but for me, I know I definitely through experience in doing that, it's like doing hard shit puts me back in line.
Yeah, no, definitely. Doing hard stuff is the best. It just puts everything into perspective. When you're complaining about taking the rubbish out when it's pouring rain, and that at your moment, when you're complaining about taking the rubbish out in the pouring rain, in that moment, that is the hardest thing that you could possibly be doing. But when you go for like an hour run or a 5-day bush hike, even a 1-day bush hike, whatever it is, just something physically, mentally demanding, you soon realize, oh, taking the rubbish out in the rain is 2 seconds. It's easy. It's absolutely nothing. So it gives you the clarity, and it just resets all meters of like, oh, okay, this is what's hard. And this stuff is just super easy. I've just fallen into comfort.
Something I couldn't get out of my head the last few runs I've had is pain is an ally. So that's what I keep getting in my head. And I moved like as I was running like across time, it was like that transferred into like pain as like a father figure. So pain will discipline you when you need to be disciplined. But
like I've heard this somewhere.
I feel like it's pure original out of my head. I felt like I was doing it, and I was like, it's like a father figure. It's like a father, because it's like it disciplines you when you need disciplining, because it knows what's right for you. Pain always knows, and then it also loves you. So it disciplines you when you need to be disciplined, but that's out of love, as a father would. So it's like you get told off because that's the wrong thing to do. It's not going to put you down the right path. So it's like, for me, pain does that for me. It puts me just back in that right sort of lane.
Yeah, no, it is a good way to put it. Super important to be able to identify different types of pain as well, because there's good pain and there's bad pain. It's such a generalized thing, but like we're so disconnected from our bodies. People literally, like even in this modern day, like we're so reliant on widgets and gadgets to tell us everything that our body's doing. Things as simple as like heart rate stuff. Like we're guilty of all using like heart rate monitors to know what our heart rate's at. When you actually like take off the heart rate monitor and start running without one, and then you are like, oh, I actually can kind of listen to my body, run with no music, feel your rhythm, feel your breath, and you're like, oh, I'm really out of breath. I know my heart rate's jacked. It's like 180s. And then it's amazing how when you start listening to your body, you actually get to learn your body. And then you're like, oh, I don't need any of these things. And then that translates to reading pain and understanding what your body's signaling to you. It's like, oh, this is like really bad pain. I need to put the Goggins mentality aside and listen to my body because it's screaming at me to stop. Or it's like, no, this is fine. Like, it's just uncomfortable. There's pain and there's discomfort. And I think those are almost the two ways to separate like the good and bad pain. Like you're running for, I don't know, 2 hours. It's going to be uncomfortable. Like feet are probably going to get sore. Your lungs are going to get sore. You're going to want to stop. But it's like, that's discomfort. And then pain is like, oh, no, my knee's gone. I need to listen to this. So yeah, if there's one thing I could encourage people to do, it's like run with your body, run with your breath, run without a gadget. Even if if you wear a watch or something, before you look at your heart rate, try and guess what your heart rate is and then look at it. So that way you can just start to close in that gap of like the disconnect from your body.
I would say that's definitely for people who actually run and they like have, or even people who have smartwatches and they use the heart rate monitors. But even more so for like a more general person, I'd say run without music, because everyone runs with music.
And just working out without music.
And because you were talking about the breath, like noticing your breath, like being like one with your body in your own head. Like you can have some great conversations when you're by yourself. I did that because the last 2 half marathons I did, one was with no watch, no music, and then the next one I did with a watch and then with a podcast in my ear, and like it just distracts you. It distracts you so much.
It's a distraction.
Yeah. Like I felt so much more comfortable when I had not so much more comfortable, because I do it a lot, like running without like headphones.
But it's just easier.
It is. Even for someone who does both, I can always tell, like running with a pod, it just puts you in a trance. You're like, oh, I've just run a K and a half, and I didn't even realize because I'm listening to the conversation. Yeah. But yeah, I would definitely encourage people to, and to your point as well, like work out with no music. Even it's interesting because in a gym it's a different environment to like cardio, most cardio outdoor stuff, because you're actually in a room with like a bunch of people. So there's different conversations going on. You sort of like, you're not in your own world, and like I feel like you're a bit more, not self-conscious, but you're a bit more aware of yourself.
Anxiety is heightened for sure in gyms.
Because that's what the environment is. But like, yeah, just being around all those people and actually being vulnerable without the music. Because when you put the headphones in, it's like you're in your own world. But when you have them off, it's just, you just feel like you're aware of everything and people are looking at you and shit like that.
That's where you really need to learn to not care what people think and hone into what you're doing. Like lifting weights is like, depends what lifts you're doing and stuff, but it can be very dangerous. So you really need to focus on what you're doing, focus on your body, like feel the muscles you're wanting and needing to activate for your certain movements and activating those. It's not just this impulsive, like, oh, I'm going to activate all these muscles, boom, and then you pick up the weight. Like, no, you need to feel your muscles, know what it is that you want. It's a skill to learn your body. I remember when I first started training, a lot of it is like mind-muscle connection. That's a term that gets thrown around a lot. And it's like, you want to, like when you're lifting a certain weight, say you're doing a bicep curl, because it's super easy to just like explain. You want to like feel the grip, feel your forearm activating. And then as you lift it, you want to feel that bicep engaging, and you want to try and like isolate that movement. You don't want to be using, you know, your like pecs and your shoulders and your legs to lift it up. Like you really just want to isolate that like that 12th, muscle.
11th rep, like, like with just the whole back.
Exactly. And like if you're like having familiar music or music you hate just pounding in your ears, it's like, that's just going to be a distraction. It's not really going to allow you to like truly feel. It's like if I say to you, hey, I need you to sit down and do this exam, but I'm going to like blast music, like so loud. It's like your thoughts are just going to be so cloudy. How are you going to write like some, I don't know, creative arts piece or do a really complex math problem if I'm just blasting music and distractions in your face all the time? So it's the same thing. Like it takes focus to listen to your body and connect with your body. And we should be doing that rather than just like distracting ourselves. And I think definitely depends what you're doing. Like if you just work out for the sake of like working out and being healthy, like I'm not saying every person needs to work out without music, but I think in terms of connectedness, I think people should try to work out and run without music.
It's not like don't do that all the time. It's not like you're saying do that all the time. It's like just have the ability to understand that.
Yeah,
and
almost
like also listen.
Know that you have the ability to connect with your body. Know that you have the ability to listen to your body's pain.
And that's not a one-off thing. Like you don't just develop that skill. It's like that's probably an ongoing thing. I would say
it's reps
to keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to the endurance side of things, like you said it perfectly, it's distraction. When you're running with no music or riding with no music, and like you're really in, like you're a long time into this thing by yourself, you don't want to be out there, like all the demons, all the negative thoughts start coming in, and it's truly a skill to be able to deal with those when you're kind of like cognitively operating on like a suboptimal level. Like obviously the more endurance you do, the more fatigued you get, and like I'm sure you can attest to this, but like if I gave you like a math problem when you're 20k into a run, like your ability to process that is going to be so hard. Like it is, it's going to be so hard. Whereas if you're fresh, I'm like, dude, like what's 12 times 12? You're going to easily be able to do that.
144.
Exactly. And it's just wild how like trying to deal with negative thoughts when you're in a clear and sober mind, like if a negative thought comes to our mind now, we struggle with those. Imagine how much harder it's going to be to overcome that negative thought when your brain is like really struggling. So,
dude, it's like when you're running or something, and then you're deep into it. So it's like a ride or something, and then it just starts like bucketing rain, and like I'm comfortable with rain, but it's just because you're in that like grind, you're just like, oh, yeah, it's another thing to deal with.
And it's so much harder to be like, oh, like it's fine. It's so much harder. Again, like you're not operating the best you possibly could be. So yeah, if you can learn to deal with negative thoughts when you're like exhausted and fatigued, man, you're off to the races. That's why like look at like being hungry and angry is so common. Like we've developed a term for it, hangry, because like when you're not giving your body what it needs emotionally, like mentally, you're just so much weaker. Like you would know from hiking.
I get hangry all the time. Ask my mom and Siege. They always talk about it, like me being hangry. It'll be like we're cooking dinner and like someone does something. I'm like, you're just annoying. Like,
Yeah.
but it's just like I just need food.
And you don't even know, like, you know why you're angry because you haven't got food,
Yeah.
but you're not
You
you're not thinking about the situation. You're just reacting about how you
Mm.
feel. You're like, I'm hungry and annoyed, so therefore anything that's going on in my life right now is the cause of that. Like, your mom, you're annoying, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, but no. So yeah, like there's such
Definitely.
a skill if you can learn to overcome negative thoughts when fatigued. Oh, you get so much better at doing it. when you're
Massive thing for that,
chill.
because you mentioned it just before, was hiking. And I think the best example is like I can talk about it, but I know Finn, has like he talks about that a lot. As like he's gotten so much
Your
better.
brother, for
My brother.
clarification.
Yeah. He's gotten so much better after a few hikes. Just being like he just uses that as like fuel to be like, well, I remember how I felt in that X moment, and like, because when you're hiking, it's like, say I'm running and I'm doing something, I know my car is X amount away. I could call an Uber. Like at the end of the day, not that I'm thinking of it, but it's like you could call an Uber to come pick you up and take you to your car. When you're hiking, there is no choice, and that sometimes gets on your mind because you're just like, fuck, like I can't get out of this. You know what I mean? Like I'm hungry, I'm tired,
I'm wet, I'm cold.
I'm thirsty. Like it's just that just gets so frustrating, and it's like I need to walk up this hill, and there's no other option. And the fact that you have no choice is just so frustrating.
And it makes it even harder when you're around people that are in the same situation as you physically, like geographically, they're with you right there, but mentally they're so far from you. And that just comes down to like preparation. Like some people are going to be more prepared than others. And if somebody's feeling fine and somebody's really mentally struggling, that can add on to like how much harder it makes it.
Because you feel alone, more alone, because you
so
feel
much
it.
more isolated.
Definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a wild thing. Like just doing things that like really push you. It's crazy how much benefit you get
For
from
some reason, it's how it works.
it.
And
I love it.
I love
Like,
it too. Yeah.
I'm addicted, and that's where there's danger again. Like you can go too far with everything, and I think
You've experienced that a bit, especially
Oh,
when
for
we were a
sure.
bit younger. Like,
yeah,
definitely you went through that.
just every movement, literally every single thing I did in my life, it was like I have a choice here to make this as unpleasurable and as like filled with discomfort as possible, or I can like take the 6-lane highway, as Goggins would call it, and like go the easy way out. And there was a while where every decision was just give me more, like make it harder, make it more uncomfortable. And like it definitely shaped me for sure, but it ultimately led to burnout because like that's not sustainable. It's not a sustainable way to live.
Well, it's not to shit on that as a whole, but I think just well, we talked about it last night, how we're talking about, I think the world, what I was saying, I think the world needs both extremes. Like on say, whatever the topic may be, you need an extreme on both sides of the argument. Because then it teaches 99.7% of us that that's the wrong thing to do. That's the wrong thing to do. But we take lessons from both. It's like Goggins.
It's just finding the middle lane.
Any 600 freaking pound person like trying to be the fattest person in the world, and then there's Goggins on the other side. Don't do that, but be more like that. Like, do you know what I mean? How are we supposed to know what's right or wrong if we don't know what not to do, almost?
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why, yeah, those people are needed. They probably won't be for everyone. And I think people overlook them. People almost take them too literally sometimes. Like
That's what I'm trying to say.
they're not. Usually, they're not trying to tell you to be like them. They're not trying to tell you to live the exact way they live. Most people don't recommend their lives on other people. But it's just like, hey, take something from me. Like Goggins, all he puts out is positive messages. Like that's truly all I see is positivity coming from him. Motivation, inspiration. Like if I wake up and I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to go for a workout, and I go on Instagram and see David Goggins, I don't know, just got up at like 5 a.m. and ran a 20K. I'm like, man, I can go to the gym today. This guy, like, he just got it done. I can go to the gym.
Definitely.
So it's how you choose to.
If you have those two sides, you can take from them what you will. And Goggins used to be less like that, but I feel like he's more like that now. The way he gives his messaging is almost like he's a bit more kind to the weak, as in like he understands his role as someone who is trying to provide a message to people, is like be more like this, not be like this.
Yeah, because the other side there is so many people will see that extremity and then just like quickly shut it out and disregard it, and like they almost like use it as a way to justify their behaviors and their actions. They're like, oh, that guy's crazy, he's a psychopath, or he's just an anomaly, like he's a physical anomaly and he's a one-off. He's special. No one can ever be like him. He's got the genetics. So they just completely disregard that and then justify that like their own situation, whether they're overweight or whatever it is. They're like, oh, he's like that and I'm not like that, so how I am is fine. And I'm not telling anyone how to live, but just like, stop justifying crap. Like, we're the best at justifying our actions to make us feel better. We're like, oh, it's fine that I just ate 5 cookies. Like, it's all good. I'll go burn it off at the gym now. It's like, no.
It's not like you're saying, and again, like to say it again and beat a dead horse, but it's not like you're saying don't not eat 5 cookies. It's just the mindset of like, don't justify
it. Like, try to quit the crap. Like, we started an accountability group with some friends of ours, and we had our first meetup 2 weeks ago now, actually.
What?
No, it was last week.
It was 1 week.
Yeah, last week. And I just have to give credit to Seb. I met this South African man in Vietnam, Seb, and he told me that he does an accountability group with his brother and his friend, and they meet up once a month and basically just tell each other what they want to be held accountable for, what they've been doing good and stuff, and just go from there. And I loved the idea when he told me, and I thought how powerful that would be to start one up here. So yeah, there's 7 of us in it, and it was, for all of us, it was so beneficial to just sit around, like have a moment to be heard, have a moment to speak, and like just be able to voice everything that's going on.
And this was like, the way you're saying it sounds like it's very like structured and like we did this. It's like, my name's Kyle. Hi, Kyle. No, like it wasn't like that. It was very, we sat there, talked a bunch of shit, and then started going, okay, like what are we all like trying to be accountable for? So we just like bred it into the conversation. It was just like a meetup, but we had that theme of accountability.
Friends, and that's the important thing. Like when it comes to friends, like you can so easily just get distracted and talk about whatever. So if like anyone out there is going to start anything like this or have any initiative, it's super important to be like have intent, have direction. Otherwise, the conversation goes nowhere. So like we met up with the intent of, okay, where we want to cover kind of this like framework of topics, like being how I'm feeling today, what it is I want to be held accountable for, like where I've been lacking in life, what I've been doing good in life, and then we kind of strategize how we're going to actually implement and change what we want to be held accountable for, like how we're gonna like take those weaknesses and turn them into strengths, essentially.
But what's good about it was it's like, we're not a group of 7 dudes coming together and we're really serious all the time, and like the stuff we talk about is like more so on the serious end. We're like trying to just like share like what we're going through and whatnot, but it sounds more serious. But we talk so much shit. Like,
it's just banter.
We talk so much, and like it's not as serious as it sounds. Like we actually just got together,
it's such a casual
hung out, and just hit those metrics, and like you don't have to be serious and well put together to go do it. We literally just got 7 mates together and all went, what do you guys think? And they went, sweet, hell yeah, I got a free Saturday, Arvo. Why not? So it's like, I feel like some people would listen to this sort of stuff and be like, oh, well, they're really well put together, you know, they're serious. And like, no, we say, you and I, when the camera goes off, we are saying the stupidest stuff, like the dumbest stuff. And we're just being kiddie, but like that's because like we're normal.
That's
people.
Just our humor.
Yeah.
Like everyone has their own humor within their friendships, and everyone thinks if there was a camera on you 24/7, you would think that everyone else thinks you're weird and random. And like you are weird, but it's like weird isn't bad. Weird is not a bad thing. It's who we are. Like we have our own inside jokes that 99.9% of the world will never understand, and that's fine. They don't have to, because we know what we're talking about, and like the jokes are for us. So. Yeah, it's not the serious thing, but again, it's just
like it's serious. It's serious intent, but it's like in a manner in which everyone can do.
It's just casual. Yeah, that's what it is. Like, don't look at it as this formal thing. Just look at it as an ability to, rather than getting together with your friends and just having the laughs, like add a little bit of intent to it. Add a little bit of like
a little sprinkle,
a little spice of like, let's help each other out here. Let's take something from it, because there's always things that we could be held accountable for in life. There's always ways that we can improve in our life. How often are you sitting with your friends saying, guys, like, I just feel like I haven't been doing this as well as I could have been. Like, I'm thinking that maybe I start changing this up to fix it. Like, what do you guys think?
Oh, it was so good speaking to like 6 other people about it. It was so good.
It's rare that happens, but it was so beautiful to have the intent and the purpose behind it, because we all got so much out of it, and we've all been on such highs.
Yeah,
throughout the week.
100%. I've been on I've been so intentful with the stuff I'm doing each day, and it actually if we didn't have that, I don't think I would have done as well this week as I would have without it, which is crazy to think about it. For sure. That it was that good. It really shocked me, because we do this stuff all the time. We're always that open anyway, so it was like, oh, we're just doing it in person. I don't know, just something about it just was really good, and it's just put me on this right path. But full circle back to, it was just a step up the ladder, literally. Instead of doing something that was a step down on that Saturday arvo for a couple of hours, we just stepped up the ladder. That is as simple as it is.
Yeah, it's just moving forward. And like, again, don't think like, oh, who do I know, or these guys wouldn't want to do it. Ask them. You never know until you ask, and you don't need 7 people in your accountability group. Just find one person. Like, tell your mom, tell your friend, just something that you want to be doing better. Even tell yourself. Like, write it down, tell yourself.
But it is really nice to share.
It is so much easier to be held accountable when there's other people, because especially when they're your friends and they care about you, they're not going to justify, they're not going to make up these lies to tell you that it's okay, that you're not doing the things that you want to be doing. So by you, yeah, because we always do that. If we tell ourselves, it's always going to be like, oh, it's all right, like I ate the 5 cookies, I'll just go work out tomorrow. But if you tell your friends, I don't want to be eating sugar, or I don't want to be eating junk food, and then in a month you have to tell them, oh, I ate 5 cookies, but I worked out the next day, so it's okay. They're going to be like, no, that wasn't what you said. You told us you didn't want to eat like junk food. Like, what are you doing, man? Be better. So yeah, the accountability from friends is so good, so valuable, and utilize it. Like, we all have friends, we all have people in our life that know us and care about us, so utilize that to the full extent.
Most definitely. Yeah.
I'd almost like say that's my challenge for people. Just even though I've only done one, but try and start like some form of accountability group, or it doesn't have to be a group, it doesn't have to be this thing, but again, it has to have intent, it has to have purpose and drive behind it. Otherwise, when you hang out with friends, you just won't get anywhere with that sort of stuff. So yeah, try to be purposeful and just be accountable.
Yeah, I like that. I wouldn't even say a challenge, because I love that one. I think that's really good, and I know how well it's worked for me this week. It's been nuts, and we're going to do it every month, which is so cool. And I'm keen to do that more, because that'd be great.
Yeah, it's going to be sick.
All right, well, I guess that wraps it up.
Yeah, wraps it up. But yeah, I'd just say takeaways from the pod, the accountability thing, and think about those 10 questions that we compiled up.
Yeah.
Maybe write them down, answer them yourself.
Think of your own 5, even if you think they're utter shit.
Write your own 5.
And just the idea of thinking about 5 questions.
Thinking about 5 questions and try to put an answer to those. Again, it's never going to be a fixed answer, because everything's always changing for us. But yeah, try to think about them.
And I'm going to reflect on mine and yours too, and I'll actually try and answer them properly. Maybe I'll write it down. I'll challenge myself this week.
Yeah. Next pod, we'll go through our thorough answers.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Signing off. 2G1C.
Love you all.
Peace.
Have a great week.